going crazy that they can't see it. And so I just want to make sure. I'm sure we're all recording locally right now, but I just want to make sure that.
All right, I don't know what happened because it had said we went live.
Okay,
but we're live now.
Okay, so
Sorry.
we're back up on YouTube.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Everybody probably is gone now.
Yeah. Well, they were. I didn't even realize they didn't speak up. Okay. All right. So, Dave, you speak of this rebellious nature of Hudson Whiskey. You talk about it proudly as being this whiskey of New York, and I think this kind of transitions more into pushing back against people's ideas of what whiskey is supposed to be. I'm wondering how often, as an ambassador, you're talking to people about your whiskey and introducing it to people. How many people have like that Pace Picante sauce reaction where they're like,
so
New York?
New York City. I say that all the time, and I think that that's a real thing. And my brand manager and I broke it down even further like a week and a half ago, and we were like, New York is completely recognized as like an exporter of culture, right? Like we think about New York as like in terms of producing entertainment and producing like people that go on to do amazing things in the world. Those people very much are known to come from New York, right? But what a lot of people don't think about when they think about New York is that New York City itself is like 1% of the landmass of New York State, right? And there is a whole nother portion of the state that is very much farmland, right? Like that is very much like the way that everybody else around the country lives. But because New York City is amplifying itself so much, because New York City is such a global hub as opposed to just a cog in the machine that is the United States, so to speak, I think that we kind of lose sight of the portion of New York State that Hudson lays its roots into. And at the same time, we also don't for a second forget about the fact that that understanding of New York really is predominantly predicated on New York City. So as much as there's a conflict even within the state, and I say this again as a kid who grew up in New York City, but had family that grew up in Westchester, New Rochelle, which for people upstate, they don't even consider that upstate. Like that's really just the suburbs of the city. But I've been lucky enough over the last year and a half to be able to go to Buffalo and go to Albany and spend time in Syracuse and see what the other cities in New York are like. And I think that what we're trying to do is like strike this really important balance between the kind of bipolar opposites that our state is. And then in that way as well, it plays on like the bipolar opposites in how we understand American whiskey, which is almost like Kentucky versus the other 49 states. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's an interesting dichotomy, but I think like there's something about the spirit of New York that says that there is never going to be a national conversation that we're not going to be in. And American whiskey is absolutely a current conversation in our lexicon. And, you know, it's just amazing that someone had the foresight to know that that was going to be the case 16 years ago when nobody else necessarily thought about it that way back then.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you bring up something. I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, in Orchard Park, where the stadium is. And if you look at the population density of New York, it's very similar to New Mexico, where there's this axis that goes from Santa Fe through Albuquerque down to Los Lunas, where 60% of the population of this huge state lives in this corridor that's that's 80 miles long. Now in New York, it's a string that goes up the Hudson and across Utica and Syracuse and across the Erie Canal to Buffalo. And fully 85% of the state's population lives in that string that goes up the Hudson across the Erie Canal. And the rest of the state is just extraordinarily rural. Binghamton, Olean, those places. But I was interested in finding out a little bit in reading about how local the ingredients are. The apples for the vodka, the corn, the rye is all grown within very close proximity to the distillery.
It's within about 50 miles. Yeah.
So, so a two-part question: do you have exclusive contracts with those grain growers to produce for the distillery?
So we actually have almost like the best way I could explain it is almost like a negotiant system where there are kind of vendors who aggregate agricultural materials, because now New York State has the second most distilleries in the country, which is something that is an unbelievable fact, but is actually true. And so there is so much demand now on these agricultural products that there now been auxiliary businesses created to basically aggregate and supply. Now, we as a distillery in New York State are probably the highest demand in terms of volume. So as a result, we do have the ability to kind of move the levers on where we're getting things from based on the speed we need them when we need them and the volume at which we're procuring them, right? And those relationships are probably a little bit more long-standing than a lot of the distilleries that have popped up since Hudson has. So while they're not necessarily exclusive farms that are growing for us, we do kind of have access to what is closest to us before almost anybody else does.
So I guess I was trying to lead into a question that was like, you've got this kind of, this rebellious product. It's something that's outside the norm, something that's unique into it in itself, the founder and the people that promote the product, such as yourself. And you've got these very traditional upstate farmers.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how they felt about being part of the, kind of pulling the workaday, I'm growing this corn. I got to grow this corn, but it's going into a cool product. And I was wondering if you've gotten any feedback from your producers on how that is for them.
Well, I think, and Ralph was very keyed into the whole concept of a rising tide raises all ships, right? So the more successful our distillery was, the more corn and rye we would need from the state. The more corn and rye we needed from the state, the more family farms would be able to get rid of their yearly crops. The more they can get rid of their yearly crops and the more we grow, the more family farms we're going to have to reach out to source our raw materials. So in a way, it was almost built into the growth of the brand that the growth of the distilling industry was going to positively affect the agriculturalists in the state. Now, I think that there's also this actually, no, I don't know. I really just think that that's kind of the crux of it, is that it was always thought of as a way of making their products more valuable. And by doing that, now there's a premium on something. Oh, this is what I was going to get to, right? So there are a lot of lesser thought about ripple effects from Prohibition, right? And during Prohibition, there were very select distilleries in select states that had licenses to produce alcohol for medicinal purposes via prescriptions, right? And so as a result, you have all these regions that literally just went dark. And when those regions went dark, all of the farmers that were supplying them stopped planting those grains. So when we first started, it was actually more difficult for us to source what we thought we would need. And as a result of the growth and them kind of seeing what's been going on, there have been a lot more farmers that have been able to not only produce more, but also produce more and sell it at a higher price. And that was very much what Ralph wanted, as he was fighting for the ability to turn a profit, was to not just turn a profit that was positive for him, but to do something that was then going to influence the rest of the kind of radius around him. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. That's cool as shit.
That really is. Moving a little bit away from Hudson, and again, folks, we're talking to David Powell here in New York. Now, the people that are watching, you can see some amazing art hanging behind you that you did, and I understand that you are working, and I think Hudson may be part of this, some kind of charity art auction that you're trying to set up for bartenders, possibly in the New York area. Is that right? And can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah. So as many brands did, and as many suppliers did, when we kind of realized that the landscape was shifting, we realized that there was a need to find a way to support, the restaurants and bars and hospitality outlets that have been so supportive of us over the years. Is that a fire alarm going off? Is that here? No, I think that might just be sorry.
It's New York City, baby.
No, it is. You're right. And my headphones were in, but I just heard something crazy. And I'm working on so much stuff around the house. I know that all of my fire alarms are already unplugged and unbatteried because I'm getting ready to paint my hallway. So if I hear a fire alarm, I probably need to be a little bit worried about it.
No, if you need to jump out, dude.
This show has a fine history of being interrupted by law enforcement and emergency officials.
You know what? I once, during the middle of a show, no joke, reconnected a lost child to his mother. True story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit happened.
That is intense. So
she was on the other side of the street, by the way.
So years, I'm imagining years passing, like A&E has done a special about this.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like John Walsh is on TV simultaneously getting a phone call that we found him. Like, you just minimize your heroics so tremendously. So the art auction concept kind of came out of this, right? And I as I first started to try and think about how can I be a positive influence on what bartenders are going through right now? What I didn't want to do is just say to bartenders that have just lost whatever their comfort zone is in their career, which is that, 18 to 24 inch slab of whatever material that sits in between you and humankind while you're in the execution of a bar shift. Because for a bartender, the bar is your security blanket. That's what separates us. I know exactly what's going on over here.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing is I'm trying to provision for whatever level of a variable you're going to be towards my evening. That was the way that I approached bartending. I have everything on my side under control. Now I just need to diagnose you and figure out what I need to do for you to make you enjoy your experience and enjoy your drink. And that was kind of my end game. But then thinking about having had the opportunity once I transitioned from bartending to being an ambassador and not having 60 hours a week of work be me being on my feet, and then being able to kind of propose projects that played into the more creative and artistic side of myself that then led to me now having like 36 canvases in my apartment that are mine, which is ridiculous. I've realized that I wanted to ask bartenders questions like, what is it that if you never went back to working behind a bar after this, you would want to do? And then I thought to myself, if I was just still head bartender at Rain's Law Room or at the Bennett or at Red Rooster, and somebody was following my Instagram, and because they were engaging with me when everything was normal and we might have done events together or they might have hired me for things and they know that I'm a dope person, would I feel complimented or insulted if when they were able to provide me with support, that support only was tied to me being able to make a cocktail with their brand, as opposed to me thinking about that bartender holistically as a person and saying, I bet I could find 10 bartenders that are really amazing artists and try and use the resources that I've been told that I can distribute to 10 people to get them supplies and canvases that could then produce something that might be worth whatever it was that I was able to invest in them had they just made me a 2-minute cocktail demonstration. And that's kind of where it came from. And then me thinking about me, I would be so stoked if somebody was like, Dave, I know that you can't go to work at your bar right now, but I also know that you're really into art, and like I'd love to try and sell a painting for you and get you 15% or 50% of $2,500 as opposed to ask you to do this for this amount. And if the auction goes the way that it can and people continue to bid, then all they do is accumulate more and more contribution directly to bartenders. And then the other half goes to the Restaurant Workers Community Fund, which is doing emergency grants for bartenders who have been displaced via COVID. So this is not a William Grant sales initiative. This is like, how can we do something that highlights all of the amazing things about the people that have just been put out of work, and also give them an opportunity to maybe sell their first piece of art,
Yeah.
And to me, that was just a valuable pursuit. I wake up every day like, I don't care where I find it, but I'm just trying to get this money to get 10 people to, pre-bid on these 10 pieces. And once I do that, I've done my job, because none of it is about me. Like I shared some of my art internally on a company happy hour, and there were a couple of people in our company that were like, we'd love to, get a catalog of some of your pieces and like have one of them in our house. And I was like, that's awesome. And I appreciate that. And that's a great compliment. And I'm not minimizing that. But I would so much rather you buy one of the pieces of art that's in this auction that I'm trying to pull off. And to show you how much more I care about that than this, I will double you up and I will throw in something of mine if you purchase something from one of these bartenders, because I do have a bit of a privilege at the moment of still having my job and of having a platform by which to try and, communicate what my brand is about, but also just to do good for people that are cut from the same cloth that I am. And, I figure that's the best thing to try and stretch my brain to accomplish most honestly, as opposed to accomplish most, least common denominatorly.
Dave, that's amazing. And obviously we're going to make sure that link is in our show notes. But could you tell our listeners right now, like, what's the best way for them to maybe get in on that auction if they could?
So what I'll do is I will let you guys know as soon as I have like the full catalog, because I'm still waiting on people to get me pieces back. And I'm trying to do my best to not release things piecemeal. Like I have 2 so far of the 10 that I was approved to engage for this pilot program. But also ideally, we're trying to, if it works in New York, we're really trying to scale it as something, because I know for myself, I got into bartending after a pretty serious career in the music industry. And there are a lot of really, really talented people that just don't have the time to pursue whatever level of those passions are, that have that time right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to, as an ambassador, because I think that the concept of ambassadorship, period, no matter what medium it takes or what worlds it connects, is about connecting worlds. So if I can connect artists who happen to find that they made more money bartending than they did off of pursuing their art, back into a place where they could potentially make more money off of their art than off of their bartending craft. Imagine if there was just a school of bartenders who were like super successful modern artists that just bartended for fun and were that amazing and like came from places like Employees Only and Dead Rabbit and like Death and Co Denver or where, like it's I just always want to step back whenever I'm thinking about something that I'm trying to present to the industry as a whole and say, what can I do to make sure that I'm doing something that is not just a canned idea or me just mailing it in? And what can I do to make sure that that thing has a actual potential to be executed?
It's like the X-Men Academy for artists that are bartenders,
right?
That's
I do have a chair that wheels around. I'm not confined to it, but I do still sit in it when I do my evil geniusing.
John or Jeff, any other questions that you guys have for David?
I'm just totally blown away by that answer. I think you answered my question anyway. I was going to ask you, how you were translating your ambassadorship into something that was your own. And you just blew that. I feel like I need to be a better person now.
Well, if I could answer that in like a can, it's like the hardest thing for me to do is to actually be anybody other than myself, right? And so what I have to do when I'm developing something is like, I develop it with knowing that there are like a couple of people that need to get something from it. My brand needs to get something from it. My company needs to get something from it. The people that interact with it need to get something from it. But I'm lying to myself if I say that I don't need to get something from it also. Because if I don't need to get something from it, then I'm not going to actually put the energy out there that is worthy of somebody coming and spending 30, 45 minutes to an hour of their time interacting with my activation or whatever it is that I'm presenting to them. If it's more about me than it is about them, then my premise is already wrong.
So I did have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I cut you off about this. Solomon, you're much better about keeping questions in your head and making them better when I interrupt you anyway. So this is a question I formulated earlier where, you were talking about the old school bourbon and rye drinkers and how your mash bills are outside the norm. Are you seeing a market segment open up in being outside of those people, expanding the marketplace, going into blue water? Are you seeing that with your brand's approach to their products?
I think that for a certain amount of time, maybe there's been like a disconnect between the way that our pedigree as innovators in craft has expressed itself versus what has actually been in market, right? So like the last time that we really innovated on something was like our maple cask rye, which was us taking the Manhattan Rye platform and then having a farm barter relationship with some farmers in Vermont and Canada who are making maple syrup, giving them bourbon barrels, them doing bourbon barrel aged maple syrup, them sending those back to us, and then us finishing our rye in them, right? Like that was the last innovation that I know of that actually like went to market. And yet as a brand that is so synergetic with creating things that don't exist, I think like one of the things that we're really excited about getting back to is like going to this innovation platform. And so it's a tough one because on the one hand, like bourbon and rye are the lexicon of American spirits, right? Along with apple brandy and like along with particular other kind of like regional things, like this is what the world that we all exist in as it relates to American spirits was built upon. However, just like every generation finds a different way to manage whatever challenges are thrown at it, I feel like we're getting ready to move into the second generation of Hudson. And the first generation was pretty successful as it relates to what, Ralph and Brian Lee thought was possible when they agreed to try and start a distillery. So the fact that we're in this really like almost adolescent period, as I kind of call it, of our maturity means that we're really just finding our footing. It's like Hudson is just figuring out how to dress itself. Hudson is like just figuring out how to not care that person over there doesn't really care about you, because it's more important for you to be yourself than it is for you to care about their opinion. And like that's an awesome place to be with a brand, because that's when that brand begins to assert itself, as opposed to trying to legitimize itself. And it's awesome that, and I, in saying that, what I also have to do is like pay the proper amount of respect to people like Gabe Arenzo and like Han Shan, who were the voice and face of this brand before I was, because they're the people that kind of set the standard for what it is that I'm responsible for now. And Han was one of the people that gave me the greatest piece of insight on how to approach ambassadorship, which is like, we're not all the same. No matter how much our job is the same, we all are different, and we get our energy in different ways, and we express it in different ways, and our ideas are different. But what you have to do is find a way to bring people into the way that you work. And what's been amazing is, from the distillery to my brand manager, to the guys that work in bottling, to the guys that work in the mash house, to the guys that work in fermentation, bottling, and the guys that are in the still house. When I give a tour at the distillery, I only talk when we're walking in between buildings, because it would be really arrogant of me to have Kyle operating the stills and then me try and describe what Kyle is doing, as opposed to me being like, hey, Kyle, do you want to tell these folks what it is that you're doing? Because you do this every day, and I'm up here like once every 2 weeks, and I've heard you say it a bunch of times, but you say it way better than me, and you understand it better than me because you do it every day. Like, I'm blessed with a level of humility that says that I know that I don't know everything, and I know that I just want to present everybody with the best possible way of interacting with this particular swath of American whiskey. That's my task.
Wow. Dave, I have to presume, growing up in New York City, bartending in New York City, you've seen it all. You've seen the best, you've seen the worst, you've seen the stuff that was so just out there. Wait, what did I just see? And it took you like a couple days to process it, right? And I'm also thinking about, just as a brand ambassador for a whiskey, I'd imagine that you've tried all different ways that anyone could ever think of. And I understand, that the standard idea is, look, however you like your whiskey is cool with me. But Dave, I got to know, in all your years of experience, have you come across your best way to take whiskey? And is there a way that you've seen that maybe a lot of people do, and you're like, I can't believe they do that shit, that's ridiculous?
Ridiculous? I don't know that I've ever seen anybody have a way of drinking whiskey that was like literally frowned upon. I don't know that I've ever seen that in my life. Not yet. The most interesting way, let's see. The most interesting way would probably be like when I was first introduced to Glenfiddich Grand Cru. And Glenfiddich Grand Cru is like secondary finish in X champagne barrels. And it's like these weird notes of like brioche, and it's like this real awesome, like mind warping, category stretching thing. But then when you have Grand Cru and then you have champagne and you like side by side the two of them. So okay. So like minus the bubbles, plus the ABV, minus the grapes, plus the malted barley. That's really interesting. Other than that, I think the best way that I've ever experienced whiskey is in the context where I've been invited to blend it myself. So given the ingredients that become the sum of parts of whatever a particular standard variant is, because like if you're talking about a blended Scotch or an American whiskey even, which is going to be a vatted blend of a bunch of different barrels, figuring out what the levers on every single one of those particular notes are and how you want to balance them to create the flavor. For me to then know that I had exercised a cheat code known as dilution, because every one of those ingredients had been given to us at cask strength. And me as a bartender, I just said, you know what we actually should do and what's going to make this bar more palatable?
Add water.
A couple of drops of water to open this up just a little bit. And the fact that we were so right that like we were almost a unanimous decision within the group was awesome. So to get to drink that blend after having been so validated on such a simple insight was like awesome. I'm happy.
That is great. And I don't know how this happened. I indirectly felt like I just got stabbed in the heart because now I'm thinking about Eccles. Remember when we were in that wine blending competition?
Yes.
And we got second place?
Yes.
Oh.
But the winemaker said ours was the best.
And he came on our show twice. So there's that. But hey, Greg, methyl
chicken wire.
All right, guys. Here we go. Last roundtable question. If you got anything,
I've
tapped out.
I'm tapped out.
Jeff, did you want to?
Blown away.
As far as like David didn't say there's no wrong way or nothing bad he's seen about drinking.
Mine worked.
Yes. Jeff, you want to bring up Fireball at all and say anything?
No. Okay. Here's one last
Screwball.
thing.
I got some Screwball in the.
Dave and I were talking a little bit about skateboarding before the show. So I just got to ask, Dave, being that your last name is Powell,
I used to rock a Powell Peralta.
I was gonna say, what was it like a
board?
Lance Mountain, Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero?
Man, I was so on the Powell Peralta decks and like hardware when I was a kid, and I'm the last of my family lineage with the last name Powell. My grandfather was Charles Powell, and then he had a daughter and a son, and my dad, who was his second son. My dad's older brother never had a son. Well, he did have a son, but he kind of like didn't do right by that. So my oldest cousin Kachi never took that last name. He took his mom's last name. And so I am the last boy with my last name. I am literally responsible for the Powell lineage. And that is not something that I take lightly. But so then my cousin Kevin, whose last name was Burroughs, my cousin Kachi, whose last name is Del Valle, and then me, named David Powell, all had skateboards, and we would all be in my cousin Kevin's driveway. His driveway had a little decline, so we could pick up a little bit of speed. You would skateboard down the driveway, bust a little bit of a left, and then there was like a basketball hoop in front of the woods in New Rochelle. As a kid who grew up in Harlem, I did not understand any of these things. I was so confused by them. I was like, you have a driveway and you have a basketball hoop in your on your house, and then there's another basketball hoop when you go down the driveway and lean back so you can go to the left, and we could just get off of our skateboards and play 3-on-3 at the bottom of your driveway, and your neighbors don't live anywhere except for if you take the driveway as far opposite as where we just came from, and their front door is all the way up there. Because I grew up in an apartment building in Harlem where like my neighbor's front door was literally 3.5 feet from my parents' front door. And our other neighbor's front door might have been like 6 feet because we lived in a corner apartment. So I didn't understand this method of space. But like all of us, because our grandfather's name was Charles Powell, had Powell Peralta skateboards and skateboard hardware. So yes, that was absolutely a part of my childhood.
Beautiful.
And also like, and Jeff, I think you'll appreciate this as it relates to me, like getting back into skating. Like Lil Wayne is my spirit animal.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
So, like all I want to do is like ride fakie and like make a skate park that's way better than anybody ever thinks that it's supposed to be.
I just want to do roll-on grinds all day long.
Yeah.
All right, folks, if you're familiar with our show, you know that once we get to the skateboard discussions, it must be.
Oh.
Last call.
Last call.
Rap music. Rap music with a W, not with an R.
Time to clean house and lock the doors. You know what we do here, folks. We're looking for a little bit of help from you. John Ruyak, if folks want to follow us on social media, where can they do so?
You know what, folks? You can see us. Find us at Twitter at We Like Drinking 1. So numeral 1. Instagram, We Like Drinking, and our private Facebook group known as The Tavern. WeLikeDrinking.com/tavern or on Facebook.
Nicely done. David, one last time, remind our listeners where they can find you and Hudson Whiskey on the social media platforms.
Yeah. So Hudson Whiskey's Instagram is at Hudson Whiskey, all spelled in American English. My Instagram is Basquiat, so it's Jean-Michel Basquiat, but he's bored, so it's BLAHSQUIAT. The distillery is at Tuttletown, TUTTHILLTOWN, and other than that, man, I can't wait to finally hit my Ollie so Jeff and I can celebrate being above 35 and still tricksters.
We're gonna do some social distance shove-its later. It's gonna be beautiful.
I'm so with it.
Jeff Solomon, if the folks have some thoughts on the show or about your 6 skateboard moves, where can they leave a review?
I'll be right back.
Hey, if you got thoughts about my skateboard moves, keep them to yourself. But if you have ideas about the show, if you just want to tell us how amazing we are, take a look at your phone for once in your life. Scroll down to on your podcast app to where you see those empty 5 stars. Fill them up and leave an honest review about how amazing we are and how handsome I am.
We got it. We got another big fat 5-star review this week. So thank you for that. They didn't leave any words, but at least they
filled the stars.
They swiped and poked
with a number 2 pencil. They just filled it in inside the lines
right where they needed to. And folks, if you've done all that and you're looking to become an Uber supporter of the show. Visit welikedrinking.com/pledge to find out how you can become a sponsor of the show via Patreon. We've had a couple people join this month. It's been fantastic seeing everybody there. You get the after party episodes that are always a blast. All kinds of cool stuff by signing up there. You can also find the show notes for this episode with all links to the stories or mentions we had at welikedrinking.com/episodes. All right, folks. We've reached the time of the show where I get to say, okay, panel, let's take one last trip around this table and get some final thoughts before we shut off the lights. John Ruyak.
So I know a lot of people wouldn't be interested, but there's something in there's a lot of somethings in the Shawanagonk Mountains. You know what those might be?
What would those be, John?
Timber rattlesnakes. They're chock full. They're chock full of timber rattlesnakes. Cool animal. Should have been our national animal, not the bald eagle, but you take what you get.
Jeff Sullivan.
Every week, how can I follow this guy? I thought our national animal was going to be the turkey. Whatever happened with that?
Ben Franklin just didn't know how to be a proper ambassador for the turkey.
Real talk, turkey is like some overrated bird. Like, it's dry.
Every year from their duties as the national bird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that part's cool. Just taste
that part.
Yeah.
Is that your final
Yeah, no, I feel like our national bird should be a game hen or something, like a duck, like a nice juicy, a Canada goose should be our national bird.
There's more than a goose in the United States than there is in Canada.
With all that randomness, David, do you have any parting thoughts before we let you get out of here?
Yeah. I hope that everyone can accept this metaphor for what it is and not take it literally. But one of the things that I've loved sharing with people as quarantine has become our reality is like, as we all find ourselves in solitary confinement, segregating housing units, if you will, some people will do their time and come in as Malcolm Little and go out as Malcolm X. Meaning that they've taken their time to work on themselves and find and be honest with themselves about their weaknesses and the things they can build on and find a way to work on them. And some people are going to go in Mike Tyson and come out Mike Tyson thinking, I'm the motherfucking heavyweight champion of the world. Ain't shit changed. And I just hope that people trend towards the version of working on themselves as opposed to the version where the ego takes over and says that nothing will change when whatever it is that we're enduring right now is over. Because if that's what you're being directed by, then I promise you that you're going to be at such a disadvantage to people like me who are not only thinking about what this is going to be like when it's over, but like what that's going to be like when that's over and what the thing after that's going to be like. So just always keep your mind on positive, productive things as much as you can. And also, please don't be afraid to feel everything as it happens and forgive yourself for things that you don't recognize in yourself during a time like this. Because when I Chernobyl, I swear to God, I had not seen my temper in like 27 years. And it was nice to be able to look at him and be like, oh, so that's what you look like as an adult. Okay, cool. So I'm not scared of anyone that wants to fight me anymore because now I know what my temper looks like as an adult.
You know, you still got that level of crazy.
There's that level that is no longer me as a humane member of society that goes into that place that has probably been triggered by something. And what I found out is that place will, pardon the bad pun, trump whatever it is that you are bringing in my direction.
All right, there you have it. David, man, I know it was last minute for you to come join us. I really appreciate you jumping on with us. This was a really, this was a really interesting and fun discussion. It has really been a privilege to get to know you a little bit over this last hour. You are an incredible human being, man, and it was just an honor to have you on the show. So
it's been my privilege to be here and to just connect with you guys over the course of an hour and a half. Like that's what I think all of us are starving for, is to like really find, how do we connect with people now that we can't do it in person? And moments like this over the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours, are the ways that we now get to know people that we can't just get to meet in person. So to me, this was amazing because it brought me into all of your worlds as well.
Yep. And hopefully we'll get to do it in person sometime. And now we got to get rid to that virtual fist bump, because it's where I get it's the time of the show where I get to say, okay, panel. No, I already did that. I'm all flabbergasted. What do I even say here, Jeff Solomon?
With that, I'll say,
you take it.
Thanks again for joining us on the We Like Drinking podcast,
where you'll never drink alone. It's awesome that Solomon got to lead it out and froze.
I'm just happy I said words at this point.
Son of a bitch! What happened?
This was fun.
That was awesome. David, I'll get info out to your people with the link.
And please send me the video too, because like I don't know if y'all have seen yet, but like I made last week like this 7-minute short film about what quarantine's been like, and I'm working on like episode 2.
Awesome.
So I'd love to be able to include portions of this in it. So like whatever's been recorded, just send me a link so that I can access it, and then I can incorporate it in like episode 2.
Yep, I'll get that to you all tomorrow. The show will go live Friday, so it'll have links to it and where you can send it and all that kind of stuff.
All good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for staying up for us late. It was awesome getting to know you.
Oh, my pleasure.
All
right.
Thank you, David.
Good night. Woo!
Oh my God, Solomon, you were frozen.
No. The best part is, I love when I come back and you go, you guys were frozen like that. Because let me tell you something. All 3 of you motherfuckers were frozen, and you looked ridiculous. No, I got so excited. I pushed my computer, and the fucking cord fell out, and I'm like, shit.
Oh,
this is what we saw.
Exactly.
That was great.
Oh shit! All right.
Hey, YouTube.
Hey guys, I am so sorry about whatever I did there. That you did get to hang out for the whole show. That sucks. My bad.
Well, God, I can't believe you guys waited around that long. Like all of a sudden, like I just see in the chat, like, Joe, are you still around? Joe made the last comment, but like Joe and Cody were both like, yeah, I guess I'll give them like 5 more minutes and then we'll take off. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean 5 minutes? And so yeah, I don't know. Did the show start for you guys and then it just disappeared, or what?
I don't know if it came back and said didn't start. Like I swear I clicked on it and it said excellent condition, and I thought it said we're live, but it must not have, because when I went back to YouTube, the go live button was there. So I must just not have clicked it.
If I'm interpreting this correctly, I think Joe is saying that, yeah, it did start and then it went away.
Oh.
So, never started. So yeah, I don't know. I'll blame YouTube for that.
No, it had to be my fault. Based on what I saw when I went back to YouTube, it had to be my fault that it didn't happen. I didn't click hard enough or something. I don't know. So sorry about that, y'all.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sticking around, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. I guess the beginning of the show was amazing. It was even more amazing than the end of the show. So I guess you'll just have to download the podcast.
Well, It never start. Well, no. I mean, you're seeing us now, meth. Like, it came in when it came in, right?
No, he's saying it sucks that it never started.
Okay, yeah. They were just discussing gardening. I saw that. I was like, okay, that's cool. We got a show going on. Yeah, David just talking about Hudson Whiskey for the first 10, 15 minutes of the interview portion. It was so good. And while this is happening, I'm seeing you guys say like talking about oh, I guess the show's not happening or whatever. I'm like, huh? And I start freaking out. And I'm like, just wait, guys. Cause I didn't want to interrupt anybody because the interview is going so well. So I hope that the transition is kind of seamless. Like when I jumped in and said, "Hey, stop." Like I hope.
No, I know it's about 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
So I'll go cut that out because there's no point in having that in the final show. Unless you want that in there, Jeff. Or
no. You know what you can do? You can put that in outtakes. No, it's just it is. Tis what tis.
Blooper reels.
All right.
But yeah, last minute guest, and that was David. Was great. That was really cool.
All right, so yes, the chat is behind. Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, so Methel, it looks like you may be the only one left. Thanks for sticking around, watching the show. I'll make sure we're recording next week. Sorry about that. What do we got going on next week? Is next week a wine episode?
Yeah, we're only doing wine from Valle de Guadalupe in Baja California.
Right, cool.
Nice.
So look for that, Meth. All right, talk to you next week.
Lance Henderson.